Okay, so a very brief introduction to Diwan. Diwan has been going for about 30 years as a company, and we've primarily working with documents and publishing, and especially software for creating the documents more than actually browsing them. And this is the main area where we're now working, is actually making this reader, but specially for education. And this reader, we've been actually working on this for the past 5 years, and the main idea was that you want to put the laptops into the schools. To put the laptops into the schools means that the schools need to be able to use them every day. Otherwise, you're really just talking about selling 30 laptops, they put in a crate, and that's it, 30 per school, which is, you know, it's a business, but it's nothing great. So the point here is that the way I sell to teachers, I'm saying, you can continue teaching your lesson in the way you know how to teach it, but you could also do this with a computer, and then the computer brings these advantages. So the teacher doesn't feel frightened of the technology, and then really you sell this to the teachers first, and then the school principal, of course, will always go back to his teachers and see what the teachers say about the software. If the teachers accept it, then they're more likely to make that purchase and getting the computers for the classroom. And we're in an interesting position in the market right now, is that the classmate computer is getting to the price point where it becomes nearly the same as having the books. So if a school was to buy a book for every lesson for the child to use, the amount of money they're spending per child over, let's say, 2 to 3 years is about the same price as a classmate PC. That's the amount of money they spend on paper and books. So it's becoming a situation where it is equivalent, and in the future I assume it's going to become cheaper. And the idea of Oannïs is the software package that we made, is to make it so that the teachers can actually use the computer in their lessons, and this is where we are trying to get schools to come over to actually having these laptops as part of, we call it like the new school bag. It's the laptop is the thing that the kid takes into school, brings back. So this is the Oannis reader. I'll give you a very high-level overview. The aim of the software, you can see it has this sort of wooden looking interface. It is meant to be familiar and also approachable and very quick to learn without really using a manual. I mean, that's the user guide just visible there. So you have on this side of the screen these buttons, and that's pretty much the whole visible interface. That always remains there, and that's something the teacher can learn what the buttons do, and they'll always be able to go back to that. And the idea is to have the same software for the teacher and the same software for the student, so there's always this unity between them.
Is there a meaning for the Oannis?
Yes, Oannis is an ancient Sumerian deity that came out of the sea, half man, half fish, and brought knowledge to the world.
That's good. Really?
Yes. So it's a really nice story behind it, and that sort of I think that helps as well when people ask that question. And the idea here is that it's extremely easy to use. So the software is specially configured for touchscreen and whiteboard. Of course, it will work with a mouse and a keyboard, but we've designed it in such a way that if you're using a pen or a whiteboard pen, you don't have to worry about having the mouse in a certain place and seeing if it changes its appearance, or if you have to right-click. There's no such concept as right-click in this. The main view here is organized into a library on one side and a preview on the other. So we can go, for example, here's my documents. So this is a new tab, and it says you can drop your PDF or Office documents here, and they'll get added to the library. And things are grouped together in tabs. You can add a new tab as well, and I'll show you the process of adding. So I'm just switching out to full screen mode, and then I will, let's take, for example, a Math Class 8, and you just drop it onto the library area, and it starts loading. As soon as it loads, you see there's a little word here, indexing, and it's going through the pages. So it actually builds a full text index of every book you add to it. So I can also take science class, for example,
And the teacher is doing the transfer, not the student.
Well,
I mean, if the teacher
right now this is the desktop version, so the teacher could actually pre-assign that, and we could have that actually configured into the classmates when they get it. Depends on how it works. But this is a standalone version which could be used by a student or a teacher. You're dragging and dropping it here. Later I'll show you the version that we're actually creating for classroom use, which is something that we could specially configure for schools, which will actually let the teacher machine share with the classroom. Okay, so I'll go back into full screen mode. We've got the books, we have them in our group. I can just click and hold. So here's again an example of the interface that's designed for the whiteboard, where you don't actually have to right click. And I'm going to say edit, and I'll call this class 8. And that's grouped together now. Now, I will start by choosing one of the books. So let's take the maths book. And when I open the book, you'll see it just appear as if it's a normal book. It's full screen interface. There are only 2 view modes. I can either see the full height or the full width. And nothing else. It's really designed around ease of navigation. So there's no zooming into a small area and then having to move around to read the text. The button here says show thumbnails, so we can see thumbnails, and that will just let you jump to a page quickly. Here a page has already got links on it, so I can click on one of the links and it will take me straight to that page number. And the navigation is extremely quick and easy. And right down to if I now want to go back, of course there is the universal back button. We have that there highlighted. Or I can just press and hold, and this is a unique feature of the program, is this circular menu. This is really easy for somebody with a whiteboard or the classmate pen to navigate. So of course you've got back. I can go forward, I can go to the end of the book or beginning, so it's just a small gesture and you can do that. So if you're flicking through the pages, it almost becomes automatically, you just do this. That's the navigation aspects of it. And then we have different parts which are like bookmarks, search, and the search itself can work either inside the book, or if I'm looking in the library, let's say I'm looking for the word under, let's take a popular word, we search the whole library, all books, and it will find those immediately in all the books that have been indexed so far, and you can just immediately go to that point, and there it's highlighted. So very quick navigation in that respect. Next thing is the aspects of the program for teaching, which is I think maybe the most significant part for this. So I will go through briefly the highlight tool and the note tool and the pen tool. So those are the 3 aspects for actually using it for learning. So the highlight tool, it looks simple, but it's actually one of the most powerful tools in this. Once I've made a highlight here, the first thing you see is a little logo appearing. Now this is where I may crash this program or not, but let's just hit it. What will happen is, yes, it works nicely. It's actually extracting the text under the highlight, making a search query on Britannica.com, that's an online encyclopedia for schools, and then giving the results sorted by priority, and priority being what has of those words that you find in this text that have the most matches. So the first result is going to be not so accurate, but as you notice now, for example, projective geometry is floating to the top. So as it searches more, the more relevant articles actually start floating to the top. That's the ones with the most keyword matches. So this is an example of where you can actually demonstrate immediate connection with online resources straight from the school book. And that all the teacher has done is made a highlight and hit the icon of the search site.
And you can highlight just a specific word, not so much
you can highlight a specific word or a rectangle, but really you get the better results by highlighting the phrase rather than single words.
Okay.
And that's how the teacher would relate to it. And clicking on any of these will immediately open up the web browser onto that article. That's that's part of the highlight. The other part of the highlight, if I click and hold on it, you can see I can add a link to it. Now that link is, again, the most powerful feature, I think, in this program. It's there. I can now, from this highlight, go anywhere, literally anywhere, that you can do from your computer. So I can enter a web location here, http maths.com, if there is such a thing. Okay, so now I've got a web location. Click on that, it's going to bring up the web browser. That's the teacher can assemble these links. So the teacher's preparing the class and assembling these links and actually linking the books that they know how to teach from straight to the websites they want to teach from. We could do something else. We can just go ahead, change my link, and I can change it to another page number, just to a number. So let's say I'm going to page, I don't know, 10. So now this has become a link to page 10. And we have the universal back button. Takes you straight back to where you were before. And this link could be anything. Even I could make it linked to an application inside the classmate. So let's say the school standardized on a certain kind of application, and that application you can actually call it in a certain way. It goes to the right animation. Of course, there's also media. So if I go to library, videos, sample, wildlife, and I click on that, now it's going to bring up a nice video straight away from clicking. So I'm just showing you one little tool here, and as far as the teacher is concerned, they don't have to learn anything. It just kind of works the way they expect it to, and there is no interface here. It's just suddenly your book has become a window on the world, as it were, and that's really how the teacher would like to see it. That's the highlight tool. There's more. Of course, the highlight is an annotation, so it could have a comment instead of a link. It could you could actually use it for copying. I can copy the text, or I can copy it as an image, and I can just go ahead and delete it when I'm finished with it. The next one is the note tool. That's pretty much what it does. It just lets you add an annotation. This is important. And then we can just hide it there. And that's an annotation added to my page. And then there's the freehand tool. Now this, of course, lets you draw with this, but it's actually using the Microsoft pen input. So it is fairly smooth, and it's actually good enough on the classmate for children to write single sentence answers. I mean, this is a classmate feature as well that children should be able to write on the screens of their computers. And this would allow you to have a homework book. You could open up a homework book. The children could make little answers and have them in the book. Or, it's a nice way for young kids as well to interact with their books, that they can actually make their own notes on there. And the pen input on the latest classmates is good enough for children to actually use for their own notes. I'm not going to write an essay on a classmate, but you're going to write maybe one sentence, one paragraph answers. And that's your pen input. Now, these are all useful, or these two features are useful, but to make them really useful, we have the share feature. And the share feature lets you export and import annotations. Now, this is the standalone version, so export and import is really done from a file. So export means I can take my annotations, highlights, notes, freeform notes. So these are highlights with all the links in them. And even if I want bookmarks of all the pages, okay, it creates a file on my desktop. And that file now is just a simple file. It's there it is. Okay, and that file you can just share on the network, and the kids can pick it up and they can have that available, or the kids can share their homework notes with it, things like that. So the idea is that the teacher can prepare the lesson or even add to the book with links, with notes, with drawings, and share that with the students. Or the students themselves can actually share between themselves their own homework notes. It's what makes the books useful. Again, we're working really around the existing education system, so there's no leap of imagination for a teacher or leap of learning of how to use these things for a teacher. It's still the same knowledge they're applying, it's just suddenly making it useful in a computer and internet context. That's really how I see computers becoming you're changing the way education works. You don't want to go to the school and say, yes, your teachers will have to go through this training course, relearn everything, and then you have online education. This is the great new thing, and if you don't do this, you're out of date. That's really what's held back education for the past 30 years, or computers in education. And this is the kind of features we have. Now, the other part of the sharing we have, if I click on share, is to create a summary. Create summary is another part of the highlight feature. So if I go ahead and let's say I find things to highlight, let's say I take this information, let's go to my highlight tool, let's take that, and I take another item, let's take an exercise for example. So you see I'm not even going now back to the main menu, I'm just using the highlight tool for this, and I now go ahead and create a summary with highlights and notes. So what now is going to happen is actually creating an HTML file with the items, just the items I've highlighted. And that's like, you know, taking a pair of scissors to your book, cutting them out, putting them in there with your own notes. And that HTML file, just been created, should have been on my desktop. So there it is, there's summary. And I can just double click on that. And that then is, you know, it's the bits of the book that I wanted to just have in a single page, together with all the notes I've added as well if I needed to.
Right.
And that, again, you saw my little note there, this is important, things like that. So it's all related there. And it makes it really easy now to go from your school books down to something that, you know, you can use for homework, for even pre-preparing the lesson, and they just bring up a web browser with this.
It's also good for teachers who want to put together a summary for students to study for a test or something like that.
Yes, yes, and yeah, you could have just the stuff that they need to study. Or it is a homework assignment, or if they want to help out a specific student, they're going through with the student saying, okay, this is what you need to read, this is what you need to read. Just there and then, make the summary, give it to them on a little thumb drive, and that's it. So I think this program makes the classmates really easy to sell to a teacher, because they immediately, when they see this program, they see the potential of having those computers in the classroom from what they already understand, rather than something theoretical of something with, you know, really nice graphics and really inspiring for the children. It's all very well to inspire the children. You've got a whole bunch of applications that suddenly become useful once it's actually possible to teach your day-to-day lesson using the material you already know.